Okay, so the next thing that we're going to be talking about in our chapter transport and communication is our second mode of transport, which is water transport. तो इससे पहले हमने land transport पढ़ा, हमने land transport को divide कर दिया between roadways and railways. और railways में भी हमने बहुत interesting चीज पढ़ी, something called the transcontinental railways, which is like a very important part of this chapter, and which is something that that can have map based questions in the exams. So that's a very important thing to cover. Moving on, we're starting with the second mode of transportation that we have, and that's the water transport. तो वाटर ट्रांसपोर्ट के बारे में आपको एक जनरल आइडिया तो होगा ही. वी यूज ships and tankers and boats and steamers to navigate through waters, both in domestic waters and in international territories. So also we're going to be dividing, we're going to have divisions like these later on. But then as a general introduction of water transport, let's see what we have in our book. The first thing about water transport is that it does not require route construction. Okay, so this is a wrong spelling. It does not require route construction. What it means is अगर हम रोडवेज यूज करते हैं तो हमें रोड्स बिल्ड करने पड़ते हैं, राइट? अगर हम रेलवेज यूज करते हैं तो हमें रेलवे ट्रैक्स बिछाने पड़ते हैं. बट द थिंग विद वाटर ट्रांसपोर्ट इज दैट water by itself is a means of transport. It's not a means of transport, but it's a medium of transport, and and it's something that's already there. It's something that we do not have to construct, right? So that's a huge advantage of water transport, and that is why water transport exists or is operational, because it has a lot of advantages over land and or air transport or whatever other means of transport that we have. The first thing is it does not require route construction. The second thing is oceans are connected to each other. Like we know कि जो हमारे oceans हैं, the Indian Ocean, if we talk about, or the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, all these oceans are connected to each other. So it's not that difficult for us to navigate from one ocean to another or from one continent to another, right? So the only thing that is required is the construction of ports. The construction of ports at the two ends. मतलब जिस एंड से हमें जो है ट्रांसपोर्ट स्टार्ट करनी है और जहां तक हमें जाना है उस एंड तक, we just need the construction of ports so that these ships can in ships का जो है आने जाने का in order to facilitate this transportation, we just need the construction of ports. But that apart, the medium that we have, the water transport medium that we have, that is it's very easy and it's very convenient for us, because here we do not have to make a lot of expenditure on infrastructure, and we do not have to waste a lot of time trying to build the medium of transport, right? So moving on, the third point is the friction of water is less than the friction of land. This means less than. So this implies that the energy cost is lower. तो इसका मतलब क्या है कि वाटर के ऊपर कोई भी चीज ज्यादा इजीली मूव कर सकती है इन कंपैरिजन टू लैंड. तो इसीलिए जो है हमें in order to move a vehicle over a certain medium, we need energy, and since water has less friction and things can move more easily over water, that is why the energy cost is less when we're traveling over the waters in comparison to land, right? So energy cost is lower. So these are the reasons why we use and why we develop forms of water transport. इसके बाद what we're going to see next is types of water transport. तो types of water transport में ये होता है कि एक तो हम oceans के ऊपर से travel कर सकते हैं. We can move through the international waters over oceans, right? And we can use that to transport passengers or goods from one country to another or from one continent to another, or we can move through inland waterways. Inland waterways वो होता है जो it's not over oceans, but it's on small water bodies like rivers and canals, and जहाँ पे हम boats का use करते हैं या जहाँ पे हम steamers का use कर सकते हैं, depending on how big or how wide the water body is. राइट सो ये दोनों हैं हमारे पास टाइप्स ऑफ वाटर ट्रांसपोर्ट. हम एक एक करके दोनों को देखते हैं. और फिर जो है हम सो वी हैव अ लॉट ऑफ एग्जांपल्स ऑफ बोथ दीज फॉर्म्स ऑफ ट्रांसपोर्ट. तो और वो भी काफी इम्पोर्टेंट एग्जांपल्स है, तो हम उनको भी डिटेल्स में एनालाइज करेंगे. बट फर्स्ट लेट्स लुक एट ईच ऑफ दीज टू थिंग्स सेपरेटली. राइट, सो द फर्स्ट थिंग इज ओशन रूट्स. This means that we're basically traveling over long distances. We're traveling over oceans, which going to help us travel from one country to another or from one continent to another. Okay, so the first thing about ocean routes is it's a smooth highway that is traversable in all directions. So when we're traveling through oceans, we do not need to think about, because oceans are basically wider than what we have as the inland waterways. So जब हम oceans के ऊपर से travel करते हैं, we do not have to think about the width of the water body, or we do not have to get worried about the fact that it's narrow and we can only move in one direction. So ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है. From an ocean we can actually move in all directions, so it's a very convenient means of transport. There are no maintenance costs for it because we do not have to maintain the oceans. There's basically no maintenance cost except for the building of the ships and the maintenance of the ships or the means of transport that we have. बाकी उसके अलावा there are hardly any maintenance costs of the route per se. The third thing is the transformation of oceans into a routeway is an important development in human adaptations to physical environment. So what it means is, जो ये oceans है, these are just so ocean is something that has existed naturally, and the fact that we have used it to and we have transformed it into a means of transportation is it says something about human adaptations. What it says is it forms a very a very defining development of in human adaptation to its physical environment. That's what it says. It says कि ये जो oceans है, इसको हमने जो means of transport बना दिया है by developing ships and other vehicles which can carry huge amounts of goods or large number of passengers through such long distances. ये जो चीज हम कर चुके हैं हासिल, तो it's a very important step in human adaptation to its physical environment. We've somehow learned to control our physical environment excuse me, according to our needs. So moving on, it's a cheaper means of haulage of bulky material over long distances. So when we say cheaper, we're basically comparing it with land transport or air transport, and if we do make that comparison, so we find कि ocean routes जो है वो it's a cheaper means of transport because again there are no construction of routes, or there are no maintenance costs as per. So it's a cheaper means of haulage. Haulage means the carriage of goods. It means कि we're able to carry huge amounts of bulky materials over long distances at a very cheap rate. We do not really have to make a lot of expenditure for making this transportation, right? So it's a cheaper means of haulage. The next thing is modern passenger lines and cargo ships equipped with radar, wireless and other navigation aid. तो हमारे पास जो ocean transportation का system है, we've not only made ocean transportation operational, but we have also developed it, we have modernized it, or we have improvised it, and in today's times we have modern passenger liners. So these are like liners or ships, whatever, and cargo ships equipped with radar and wireless connectivity and navigation aid. तो हमने उसको काफी ज्यादा equip कर दिया है with modern technology. We've equipped these means of transportation with modern technology, which helps make the transportation more convenient and more secure, we can say. So that's one thing. So that this is like it says something about the development of ocean routes as a medium of transportation, right? The next thing is development of refrigerated chambers, tankers, specialized ships. Okay, so also we have made ocean transportation more and more convenient by developing features like refrigerated chambers, जिसमें हम अपना खाना स्टोर कर सकते हैं. It's somewhere where we can store our perishable food stuff, and we have tankers and specialized ships. So these are basically talking about the developments we have made, or our achievements in ocean transportation, in long distance water transportation, right? So that's all about ocean routes. इसके बाद हम we're going to in our next segment we're going to be looking at a lot of examples of ocean routes. But before we go into that, we're going to look at a brief introduction of inland waterways. तो inland waterways basically होता है जिसमें ocean routes की जब हम बात करते हैं तो हमें पता है कि हम oceans के ऊपर से travel कर रहे हैं, right? So that's pretty evident. Inland waterways की जब हम बात करते हैं, it means that we're traveling over rivers, canals and lakes, right? तो हम इन water bodies के ऊपर से travel करते हैं, and these are inland, मतलब तो oceans जैसे बहुत बड़े बड़े हैं और एक दूसरे से connected है, ये inland waterways इतने ज़्यादा connected नहीं है. They exist in between chunks of land all around it, and these are like small water bodies that can be used to carry passenger or goods to shorter distances between two countries, or from one part of a country to another, whatever. So these are made for short distances, and they exist between land. They exist between chunks of land all around them, right? So rivers, canals, and lakes. So we use boats and steamers for navigation over inland waterways to carry passenger and cargo both. So these are the ones that we use for inland waterways. The next thing about it is it depends on navigability, width and depth of the channel, continuity in water flow and transport technology. तो हमारा inland waterway कितना operational है, और या हम उस पे मतलब whether or not we can make this transportation over inland waterways depends on a few things like its navigability, which means the width and the depth of the channel. तो यही मैं आपसे कह रही थी कि जब हम ocean transportation की बात करते हैं तो हमें वहाँ पे उस water body का width या depth नहीं सोचना पड़ता है, right? Because it's already given कि it's very wide and it's very deep, and we do not need to think about these things. But when we are developing inland waterways, we need to consider these factors. We need to think about the navigability over these waterways. We need to think about the continuity in water flow, because otherwise the transportation wouldn't be, it just wouldn't work out. And we also need to think about the kind of transport technology that we have. These inland waterways can be used for the transport of heavy cargo like coal, cement, timber, etc. So these are kind of raw materials that we need. Suppose we need to transport them from areas where raw material is available to areas where manufacturing of these raw materials can be done. So we can use inland waterways for this purpose. The thing about inland waterways is that these have lost their importance due to competition from railways, lack of water due to diversion for irrigation, and maintenance, which happens to be very poor. So inland waterways जो है, these have existed from a long time. So these are not a new development in transportation. Inland waterways बहुत ही पहले के time से use होता था, even in earlier days people used to travel in these inland waters, but these have lost their significance over time. Why? Because they face a lot of competition from railways, because after the advent of railways, we started using the railways more and more for transportation of goods over time, or for transportation of passenger over long distances. So the first thing is the competition from railways. The second thing is lack of water due to diversion of irrigation. So हमारे पास अभी inland waterways होता है, तो हम उसका water जो है उसको divert कर देते हैं irrigation purposes के लिए. So because of that diversion that because we need water for irrigation as well. So because of that diversion, जो waterway है वहाँ से हम water ले रहे हैं, तो because we need certain depth in that water for for boats and steamers to move in that water. So जब हम irrigation के लिए उस water को divert कर देते हैं, तो हमारे पास water की availability बहुत कम हो जाती है उस water body में. So now it's no more navigable for us. So and earlier we didn't have a lot of irrigation facilities. पहले के time पे तो people used to water their harvest just manually. So now that we have developed irrigation facilities, we need water to support that. So that makes less water available in the water body for navigation, right? So there's that, and then poor maintenance. So in waterways का जो है maintenance भी बहुत अच्छे से नहीं रहा है, तो इसी वजह से now these have lost their significance over time, even though they continue to be relevant. It's not like we just do not use inland waterways anymore. They continue to be significant, at least in some parts of at least in some regions of the world, but जितना ये पहले relevant था, over time it has lost that much of importance, right? So there's that. The last thing about inland waterways is that we can enhance navigability by using a lot of techniques like dredging, stabilizing river banks, building dams and barrages. Now, with the help of these things, by doing these things, we can somehow manipulate the water flow in a river or a canal, whichever kind of water body we have. We can play around with the flow of water, and that we can use to enhance the navigability of the water body in case we needed to use it, right? So that's it. So that's it about ocean routes and inland waterways. Now let's just look at a lot of examples of the two of these.